The way you tell the distance to something you can't actually go measure, one way to tell the difference is to use trigonometry. I taught high school trig for years. It's not that complicated. If you get two observation points looking at a third point, if you know the distance between your observation points and you know the angle that they form looking toward this third point, you can actually calculate the unknown distance using sine, cosine, or tangent. Simple high school trig, I could teach you how to do it in 15 minutes if you don't know. Well, we got this same problem when you're looking at stars. The Earth is only 8,000 miles in diameter. So if two people are on opposite sides of the Earth looking at a star, 8,000 miles is nothing compared to star distance. So we need to get a greater base on our triangle. So what they've done to enlarge the base is they look at the star in January, then they look at the star in June, and you now have a huge base on your triangle. The problem is the distance from the Sun to the Earth is 93 million miles, which is 8 light minutes. It's called 1 astronomical unit, which means the diameter of our orbit as we circle around the Sun is 16 light minutes. Now, that's a big number if you measure it in miles, but if you measure it in light minutes, it's not that big. This little yellow dot on the far left here represents Earth's orbit around the Sun. 16 light minutes. Now, if you were going to look at a star that was 1 light year away, and apparently none of them are that close, you would have a very skinny triangle even to measure 1 light year, because a year has 525,948 minutes in it. That's about like having two surveyors set up their instruments 16 inches apart and focus in on a dot 525,000 inches away. What we're going to do here is translate the light minutes into inches, so the analogy makes sense. Well, 525,000 inches is 8 1/4 miles. Let's get two guys up on the roof of the church with transits, powerful telescopes. We're going to park them 16 inches apart. They're going to focus in on a dot 8 1/4 miles away. Would you agree that would form a very skinny triangle? Real skinny. That is for 1 light year. Now, if you want to measure 100 light years, you have to move your dot 826 miles away. At 1 light year, it gives you an angle of 0.017 degrees. At 100 light years, it's 0.00017 degrees. I don't think that's measurable. Some have argued, though, they can measure 100 light years. Well, I don't think so, but I'd like to see the proof of that. But I'll give them 100. I don't think you can tell exactly where you were 6 months ago on opposite sides of Earth's orbit, for one thing, to establish your other base point to get this exact angle. This textbook says parallax trigonometry can be used to measure distances out to 100 light years. Now, some have argued, oh, we've got better telescopes now, we can go out 1,000 light years. I'd have to be demonstrated, you'd have to prove that to me, but maybe we can, okay? Even if you can measure out 1 billion light years, that still does not prove the universe is 1 billion years old. I mean, you don't need to be a genius to figure this out. If you're seeing a star 1 billion light years away, you would have to assume the speed of light has been the same all through history or all through space. See, a light year is a distance, it's not a time. If something could travel 1 billion light years in 1 second, then it's not a time when you say it's 1 billion light years away. It's a distance, not a time. So some things to consider. Number one, we cannot measure distances accurately beyond 100 light years. And I would even question the 100 as far as accuracy. You start to really get some wild numbers when you get out there. Secondly, nobody knows what light is. We certainly don't know that it's always traveled the same speed. The whole theory behind a black hole is that light can be attracted by gravity. Now, if light can be attracted by gravity, then the speed of light is not a constant. You can't have your cake and eat it too. The light is not a constant. Back in February of '99, Houston Chronicle ran an article telling how some scientists at Harvard had slowed light down to 38 miles an hour by cooling it. Then, they announced in February of 2000 they slowed it down to 1 mile an hour. Then in January of 2001, they totally stopped light. They brought the speed of light to 0, held it there, and then released it, and it took off. The speed of light is not a constant. In Princeton University, they have an article in June of 2000 that says, scientists claim they have broken the ultimate speed barrier, the speed of light. They accelerated light to 300 times the speed of light. Well, if you can speed it up and slow it down, I think it'd be silly to argue that the speed of light has always been a constant all through history or all through space. You just can't know those things. Speed of light was decreased so rapidly. Astronomer Barry Setterfield said, during the past 300 years, at least 164 measurements, separate measurements of the speed of light have been published. 16 different measurement techniques were used. The speed of light has apparently decreased so rapidly that experimental error cannot explain it. No physical law prevents anything from exceeding the speed of light. In 2 published experiments, the speed of light was apparently exceeded by a factor, by as much as a factor of 100. 100 times the speed of light. Here's the graph that Setterfield constructed of all the speed of light information he gathered from the measurements in the last 160 years, and the speed of light has been declining. Now, it appears about 1960 it kind of leveled out, and the speed of light is not declining, at least by the way we're measuring it. That could be because in the early 60s they invented the atomic clock. And the atomic clock measures time based on the wavelength of a cesium-133 atom. So if you're using light to measure light, you don't need to be a genius to figure out you have a rubber ruler problem here. If the speed of light is declining, your clock is declining at exactly the same rate, and you will never observe the speed of light declining. Walt Brown has a great article about this in his book, In the Beginning, which you can get from our ministry or from our website, drdino.com. Dr. Troitsky said the speed of light was 10 billion times faster at time 0. Well, to argue the speed of light has always been a constant is simply not a valid argument. According to the Big Bang Theory, nothing exploded and spread out faster than the speed of light when the galaxies were first created. I don't believe that theory at all, but even they would say, yes, the speed of light was different in the past. Dr. whoever you pronounce his name here, Imperial College of London said, a shocking possibility is that the speed of light might change in time during the life of the universe. Scientists brought it to a full halt. January 18th in the year 2001, researchers slowed light to a dead stop, stored it, and then released it as if it were an ordinary material particle. You can read the article for yourself here, how they stopped light totally. So, number one, I would say, or argument number two, we don't know what light is. And we do not know that the speed of light has always been constant. Argument number one is we can't measure those great distances anyway. Argument number three, the creation was mature and finished when God made it. How old was Adam when God made him? 0, right? Did he look 0? I mean, did God make a baby in the garden? Did he make a fertilized egg in the garden? Or did he make a full-grown man in the garden? We made a full-grown man, full-grown woman. Adam could walk, talk, name all the animals, and get married first day. I mean, he's a full-grown person, all right? He already had pre-programmed ability to speak, balance system to walk. Normally, you got to learn those things. You know, Adam could do it right off. God pre-programmed him with all of this stuff. It doesn't work otherwise. And God made a full-grown garden. He didn't hand him a package of seeds and say, here, plant these quick. You're going to need supper. Okay, the trees were already there, fruit already growing on the trees. I mean, after just a couple of days. Trees were made on day 3, Adam made on day 6. This was a mature creation. It just won't work any other way. It's not deceptive on God's part. It's just necessary. There's no other way to do it that I can figure out. And God made a full-grown man, full-grown woman, full-grown garden, and stars already showing with their light. So, I think a lot of people today have a strong tendency to try to put our limitations on God. You know, we can't do it, so God can't do it either. You know, that's just, you got the wrong God is the basic problem. Okay, you ought to get the real God of the Bible who can do anything he wants. Next question. What about the red shift? Doesn't that prove stars are billions of light years away and the universe is billions of years old? And what about these Cepheid variables? Well, when light goes through a prism, it'll bend it and separate the colors of light, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, because the light waves are bent different amounts going through different mediums. They can look at a star through one of these things called a spectroscope, and it'll separate the colors of the starlight out. And it puts black lines on there. And if the black lines are shifted over toward the red, they would assume, wow, that means the star is moving away from us. Now, just hold on a minute. Just because you see lines shifted toward the red, that doesn't prove the star is moving away. It could be moving away. I don't know, and you don't know.